Hello, and welcome to Marriage Unchained, the art of one flesh, where saving marriages, saving families, and saving souls is the flavor of the day. Now, let's join our host and author of Marriage Unchained, Catholic Alpha Radical, Jerry Jacobs Jr.
Welcome to episode 29. Today's problem, Final Dagger, the election that killed Catholic marriage. So, sit back, relax, take a chill pill, and get ready to rock, but don't duck. Can you feel it? Catholic Alpha Radical coming at you now. Hello, and welcome to Catholic Alpha Radical, a Catholic relationship podcast giving you winning tactics for marriage problems, girlfriend problems, and intimacy problems for men. Moreover, where my main mission is to keep you out of divorce court, and where Marriage Unchained, the art of one flesh, divorce combat coaching is the flavor of the day, while also helping me understand marriage and courting, not dating, in the Catholic faith. Why? Because dating is for sex and courting is for marriage. This is episode 29. Bam! Quote of the day. So let's do this. Quote, love concentrates on the object. Sex concentrates on the subject. Love is directed to someone else for the sake of the other's perfection. Sex is directed to self for the sake of self-satisfaction. Sex flatters the object not because it is praiseworthy in itself, but rather as a solicitation. It knows how to make friends and influence people. End quote. Venerable Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen, 3 to get married. All right, everybody, welcome to our Man on Fire segment. Today, our Man on Fire segment is about highlighting married men in the Catholic Church, doing on fire things for our ultimate warrior, Christ. So, and today we have Walt Janiec. I'm going to take my glasses off. We have Walt Janiec. He has been married 14 years with his beautiful wife, Vita. And his two children are Joe, 12, and Christine, 13. And so in our Man on Fire segment, I would like to welcome Walt Janiec. How you doing, Walt?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, Jerry?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm tired of I was tired of shoveling snow, dude. I shoveled snow like 3 times, man.
Yeah, I was keeping our driveway clean too.
Yeah. I played because it got me the first night when it all came down, and so the next morning I had to go out and I had to shovel the whole thing. Solomon went by half and half, and man, I was like, this is crazy. So after the next day, Mary said, we're supposed to snow again. So I said, okay. The next day, 2 days later, I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna play like the old Jerry. So what I did was it snowed. But I went out and was shoveling the snow while it was still soft, and I didn't let it build up. So that worked out a lot better. Yeah. So how about you?
Oh yeah. The problem was for me, the drifting, we shoveled it, and then overnight it snowed a little bit more, but because of the wind and the drifting, it was like we didn't do anything, Yeah. So we had to go out there and shovel it again. And actually we have a small snow blower. So we use that. That was kind of nice.
Oh, this one dude had a snow blower, and I went over to ask it. It was like 12 inches on my driveway. And I went, and it don't sound like a lot, but when you're trying to walk through it, it is. Oh man, I'm just doing my wife's daycare. I'm ready to go to work. I was like, I said, how much would you charge me? He said, I can't do it. I was like, oh man. So I had to do the old-fashioned way.
Yeah. Well, you got 2 sons. Put them to work.
Well, no, Jericho, man, he had his Jericho had his got his shoulder operated on, so that was out. And then Solomon was in school, and I couldn't wait, and then they had to leave, and so I was like, "Look, man, I'm gonna go ahead and get this done," because she couldn't get out of the driveway. The car was stuck in the driveway, so I was like, "So." All right, man. So first thing we're gonna talk about, a man on fire segment. We usually go into what kind of stuff that you usually do on a daily basis. So what kind of stuff you usually do? Adoration, rosary, fasting. What you got going on, man, to keep the demons out your house?
Well, with Lent, we're doing some fasting. We're doing some abstinence. I've given up all sweets. That's my kryptonite, sweets.
Abstinence of sex or abstinence of what? Food?
Food.
Remember that year? Hey, dude. Remember that year? Me and you got together and said we're gonna abstain from the Maryland embrace, from sex.
Yeah.
It didn't work too good, did it?
well, you I remember you telling me you did that one year, and you didn't tell your wife about it. And
I didn't.
And she was wondering what was going on with you.
That's that year me you did together. And I remember halfway through, I said, "Walt, how's it going?" And because the deal was that we wouldn't initiate sex with our wives,
right?
So, but if they did, because it's a mortal sin, you can't just
you can't deny.
Right?
Can't deny.
So, we didn't tell them. And so, you did okay, and I didn't do too good, man. I didn't do too good. So anyway, so you said abstinence from what?
So I'm abstaining from sweets. Trying to stay away from carbs, bread. Love cake, love bread, pasta. I've given myself an out on days where we have to abstain from meat. So I allow myself to eat pasta on those days. So so on Fridays, if I can eat pastas on those days, but aside from that, I'm staying away from sweets and carbs generally. So
yeah, me, I decided I'm going above. So I'm fasting for 2 days a week. So
no food,
right?
Full fast.
Yeah, and I told you guys I had to tell Mary because she cooks, and then if I don't say it, she'll be asking me every week, "Are you fasting?" I was like, "Yes, babe, I am." So I have to remind her. So I'm gonna try, man.
I'm sure it affects how much food she makes too. If you're not eating,
yeah, it does. It does. All right. So the next thing is, so what are you doing for studying the faith, man? You reading any books lately? What kind of broadcasts you watching? Anybody good?
My wife and I have been watching some Taylor Marshall, and we've been watching was it the Catholic Family News Network? What else have we been watching? Oh, there's one more. I can't think of the name of it that she likes to watch, that we sit down and watch. We watch some EWTN on occasion.
Yeah.
Like World Over.
Oh, yeah. Mary's on the world over, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Him, Michael Voris, and now Mary listens to the Angry Catholic, and she listens to the two Italian dudes. What are their names? One's bald headed, one has I forgot their name. Joe and Joe, I think is name. And man, my wife, she's like you, man. She is the political queen. So, and that's all they, those podcasts, I just, that's their thing. It's like, up to date stuff, issues in the Catholic Church, issues in the media for politics and stuff. And I said, Mary, why do you punish yourself like that? She says, no, I like it. Because we'll get into this in a little bit, but man, after Trump, man, that whole debacle, man, I don't really watch politics so much anyway, but after that, I was like, forget it.
Well, there's one other show that we watch is this thing called the U.S. Grace Force.
Oh yeah, she watches.
That's Father. Too. Yeah, it's Father Heilman and Doug Barry, and they have guests on there. Yeah, those guys are pretty good. One
of the shows I started listening to, man, is Jesse Romero, Father Ripperger, the War Room.
Oh, right.
And so that's the demonic, teaches you about the demonic and spiritual warfare and stuff. And it's really good. She's asked for divorce. Now what? Of course, you just didn't see it coming, but it has. So now, what do you do? Well, what you do is, step 1, you decide to man up and fight for her no matter what. Step 2, decide if one of these categories in the marriage maintenance master plan fits your situation. A, she's asked for divorce. B, she has left the home. C, mutually agreed separation but didn't want it. D, she is in the home but distant or separate bedrooms. E, you're divorced but didn't want it. Now, step 3, if you are in one of these critical situations or close to it, then register to watch the Marriage Masterclass immediately at www.savemycatholicmarriage.com. Step 4, after watching the masterclass, get the help you need by scheduling a discovery and strategy session to receive a proven plan of action tailored specifically for your situation. Many husbands will look at this and go back to allowing their marriage to fade into oblivion, accepting failure. But some will look at this and say, wonder if this works. Those are the warriors. Those are the husbands I want to go into battle with. Those are the husbands I want to work with. So allow me to help. Those that do nothing have a 100% chance of failure. Those that decide to battle, fight, and act like true men become worthy of winning their beloved back. Which are you? Visit www.savemycatholicmarriage.com. That's www.savemycatholicmarriage.com. Learn how to once again become her hero. So we're going to get into Mr. Walt's mission. So this is why I called him on, because he went to December?
No, January
6th. He went to the rally. Now, were they calling it a rally or were they calling it a march?
It had a couple different names. One was the MAGA March, and I think some people call it the Rally to Save America. And
so it was a march and rally. So I had both titles.
It was given both those titles. Yeah, they were thinking there'd be, like they were going to think about calling it like the Million MAGA March.
Mega.
And, MAGA. I mean, not mega.
MAGA. MAGA means something. What does MAGA mean?
Yeah. Make America Great Again.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we're gonna see how great America's gonna be in this next 4 years. I don't know. Anyway, so the first question I want to ask you is, man, why did you decide to go to the march? Why did you even decide to go? What led up to you going, wanting to go, and that kind of stuff?
Well, I think after the election, with the irregularities that everyone saw, well, people who looked would have noticed that there were problems with the election.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be in Arizona, where they were, counting votes of people whose signatures didn't match with the signatures on record. They had the Democrat look at it, and they had a sampling, and in Maricopa County, I think, and 11% of the signatures didn't match according to the Democrat that looked at it. The Republican looked at it, and he said, I think it was like 6%. So the Democrat was even more negative toward the signatures, than what the Republican said. He was more forgiving, I guess. And so these were signatures that didn't match the signatures on record, and you're not supposed to count those votes, and yet they counted them. So,
well, also, man, he lost in all those states. He lost by such small margins that any Rudy Giuliani, because he was the attorney. he just kept saying, yeah, I mean, he lost by such small margins in all those states that anything that was irregular would help. It would
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you tossed out the illegal votes in Arizona from the illegal aliens and tossed out, signatures from people who didn't match the signatures on record, they had people voting in Arizona who didn't have an address. They didn't live in a house. They had addresses that were either fake or where you tried to find the house and there was no street or no address at that number, or they that some houses or some lots, some addresses had only empty lots, and I don't know how you can say that that's where you live when it's an empty lot. And in Detroit, for example, or Michigan, they would, the way it works is you request an absentee ballot, they send it to you, you fill it out, and then you send it back, and then the state, they note the date that they got it back, and they take your vote, and then they eventually count it. There were a number of people. It was like 50,000, I think. 50,000 ballots, absentee ballots, mail-in ballots, were received before they even sent them out.
Right.
Think about that. Yeah. How do you mail in a ballot before you even get it? So there were so many things that were wrong, and then in Detroit, they have just in the last couple of weeks, they found a video. They were trying to get this video for months, and they finally got it. And in the video, you can see at 3:30 in the morning, a white van shows up, and they're unloading boxes and boxes of ballots. And
but okay, I stopped watching it. Well, I stopped watching it once I really, after the inauguration stuff. I wouldn't like even not the year, but the couple of weeks, a week before, because I was just getting upset. And so, because I don't watch this stuff hardly anyway. And so of course, Mary, she's all into it. But my question to you is, I mean, because I know you really basically, Walt, you are expert in this stuff. That's why I have you on talk about the political stuff and political stuff in the church, because I do consider you an expert in this stuff. But my point of what I'm saying is so now that the dude, then he's got it. I don't even really want to say his name. This dude's been elected. So what's been going on since he's been elected? I mean, like you just said, there's still people still trying to get what do you call it, evidence and stuff, and trying to. I mean, because to me, is the court cases they're over, right? They kicked everything.
No, they're not over. They're not over. The Supreme Court met yesterday to talk about various cases that are coming before them. We'll probably hear about it on Monday, what they decide. So there's several cases that are still in court. And that's the other thing too. All these states certified the vote. You asked about why people went on January 6th to DC.
Mm-hmm.
They were basically the Senate and the House were going to vote to certify the vote. Now, what does certify mean? Certify. Part of that root is the word certain. You're certain, you're positive.
Yeah, okay, I give you that.
If you're certifying something, you're saying it's indisputable.
Yes.
That this is absolutely true. There's no dispute in this.
Right.
There's no disputing these facts. Well, what are the courts for? If I take you to court, it's because the
courts are for justice.
Well, not just justice, but I can take you to court. Say you're building a treehouse, and the treehouse is partially in my yard. Right. I take you to court because there's a dispute. We take things to court where there's a dispute.
Right. Well, to get what? To get justice.
Well, to get justice, but to solve the disputes. Sometimes it's not necessarily. It may not be. You may actually really believe that you're building the house on your property, but I've got a property line that says this, and you've got your title that says this, and we take it to the judge, and it's not necessarily looking for justice. Is what we're looking for is what is equitable. And in this case, whose property line is correct. Well, in this case, where we've got a number of cases still before the courts, there's a dispute. It's disputed. All these cases all these different states are still disputed. And
but if they're go ahead, I'm sorry.
Let me finish. And yet you have all these states, They're governors, they're secretaries of states, and then eventually they go to Congress, and the congressmen and the senators decide, oh, there's no dispute here. We know that these numbers are right.
Yeah.
Well, how can they say that when there's still cases going before the courts and it's still being disputed? That's what the courts are all about. They're about solving disputes.
Yeah, right. So my question is, though, what can happen? I mean, okay, what can happen? So let's say half the states now they go to the court. So what are they trying to do? Get them to recount the stuff? I mean, I don't really understand what are they trying to do?
Well,
because to me, the dude's already elected. Everybody moved on, and then I know court stuff takes a long time. I know, but my point of it is, what is their objective? I get that's the question. What's their objective?
Okay, so we've got about 3/4 of the Republicans saying, and some number of Democrats saying, we don't trust the outcome of this last election. So we've got a large number of people who don't believe the vote was real. The vote was authentically, decided. And if you were the winner, if I was the winner, any normal person who won fairly would say, here, take a look at the ballots. Here, take a look at the voting machines. But what's happening is that's not what's happening. In many of these places, in all these places, they're saying, no, you can't have access to the ballots. No, we're not going to do a full review. We're not going to let you look at the machines. In Maricopa County in Arizona, I keep going back to Arizona, the state senators, we're talking about the state government here, they have their own state senate. Mm-hmm. They've been fighting with Maricopa County to look at the ballots there and the voting machines so they can do their own audit. And the Maricopa County Board of Elections are saying, no, we're not going to let you do it. They've been fighting. They've been fighting in court. What do they have to hide? If it's all on the up and up, you just do it. You just show it, and then everyone can say, "Oh, we looked, and you're right, you won."
So, my question is,
okay, I understand your question. So here's where that goes. Mm-hmm. We've got a lot of people who have doubts about the elections. Mm-hmm. What we need to do is we need to resolve those doubts. In addition to that, if those doubts are ever resolved, and they find out that yes, Biden did win through cheating. We've had times in the past where a person was given an office, was in office, the courts found that he really lost, and they sat the other person.
Oh, okay.
That's actually happened in the past.
Okay.
So really the ultimate goal is here to get to the truth. And it doesn't matter if Biden wins or if Trump wins at this point. What we really want to know is who really won. And in all these cases, like in Detroit and in Pennsylvania, where they were blocking the observers and not letting people look at the vote. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't have fairness in an election unless it's open and transparent. And they were not transparent in any of these cases. They were actually, their goal was to keep people from seeing what was going on, and not to allow challenges.
So we can move on because I'm laying the foundation for the other questions I'm gonna ask you. So just to for us that aren't as versed in these areas. So your bottom line you're saying is Rudy Giuliani, they're still putting cases before courts.
Absolutely.
And if it comes that the truth comes out, whichever way it leads, then let's say it leads towards Trump, then what'll happen is they will impeach or unseat. We won't be impeached. They will unseat the current president, and then Trump will be back in there. So they'll do another recount of those states. Is that kind of what the bottom line of it?
Yeah, basically what they would do is they would review the votes. And if for example, there were so many votes that were tainted and that you couldn't tell who won, they may say all of the electoral votes in that state cannot be allocated to anybody. And then they may have to go to the actual state legislature and say, well, we can't count your vote because it was obviously flawed. You guys will have to then allocate your electors the way you want, and then the legislature is going to vote.
If I'm a dishonest person, okay, now it's come out that basically I I don't know if the Republicans are, but to me, the Republicans and Democrats are basically all the same. Because the like Pence didn't back Trump, didn't back his party. But I think that really what it was, Trump was basically out there by himself, and Pence, he thought Pence was his man, and Pence showed who he was. And so basically, I think most of the Republican Party, they like things the way they are. But my point of where I'm getting to in this question is, if they've been perfecting this for like years now, in state elections and other Congress, other elections. So if I know that people are going through the court and I still have a chance of getting smacked down, reversed, I'm corrupt anyway, and I'm a liar. I don't care anyway. I'm dishonest anyway. I would just destroy the ballots, and then I would just retool the machines so that there's no evidence. So
right.
Wouldn't you?
Well, if I was dishonest, yeah, that's what I would do. But here's the thing. There's a law that says, the federal law that says for all federal elections, a state must keep
2 years.
All of the stuff for 22 months, for almost 2 years. So they must keep all their ballots and all their data, all the election related materials for 2 months, or for 2 years rather. So if you can't prove it, then basically,
you see where I'm going with this?
No, I understand that. But see, but the burden of proof is on them. They have to prove that Biden won, is what it comes down to. They have to prove that if you go and do your taxes, you have to prove, for example, that you have certain deductions. If you don't have that proof, you do.
No. I'm trying to clear. I'm not saying no to what you just said. I'm saying no to clarify.
Sure.
So I remember when they, like in the big days when Muhammad Ali was fighting and he would whoop and Mike Tyson would whoop and fight. And the saying was always, in order to win, you got to really beat the champion. You just can't come in there and think, you're going to go toe for toe. And then it's going to be, you're going to get something, he's going to get something in and you're going to win. No, you have to actually whoop his butt. Right.
Right.
So me saying that, I'm thinking of the Republicans, the Democrats going, okay, you said that they have to prove the burden, but Biden won. So wouldn't the proof of burden be on Giuliani now?
No. See, normally in civil cases, it's kind of interesting.
So this is not a criminal case. This is a civil case.
Exactly. This is a civil case.
The rules are definitely different.
So, right. So it's not, like if you get tried for murder, it's like beyond a reasonable doubt, which means they have to be really sure. And then there's a lesser standard called clear and convincing evidence. And then under that, it's just preponderance of the evidence. And that's basically 51% to 49%. So,
wow.
So if most of the evidence shows that Biden lost, then he lost. And if he doesn't have evidence to show that he won,
to counter it,
then he doesn't win. There were people. There have been like 900 affidavits, almost 1,000 affidavits signed by people saying they saw things that were illegal in this last election across the nation. And some of these people signed affidavits saying that they know that they had that there was a white van that delivered ballots in the middle of the night in Detroit. And at the time, Democrats and the people running that election down there was saying, no, that wasn't the case. That was a food truck, or they said it wasn't true. Well, like I said, a couple weeks ago, a video comes out and we see that they're unloading these boxes of what looks like ballots. It was clearly not food. And the funny thing about it is, an hour later, another one of those vans showed up with even more ballots. So at 3:30 and 4:30, there were 2 van loads of ballots and they had to change their story. They said, oh yeah. Ballots did show up in the middle of the night, but they were real. They were legit. If they were legit in the first place, why don't you say they were legit? And there's one side that's been consistent. One side signed affidavits under penalty of perjury saying, we know that these ballots showed up in the middle of the night. We were there. We saw the vans and we saw the ballots get carried in. We know this happened. Their story has been the same. A video comes forward. It corroborates what they said. It backs up what they said. Their story is still the same today. But it's these other people, their story keeps changing. There was the video in Georgia where, they send everybody home, all the observers home, and at 10, 11 o'clock, whatever it was, they go and roll out these little suitcases of ballots, and they start counting when no one's around, which is illegal down there. And they claimed that was legal, and it wasn't. And then if you look at them, if you watch the video, you can see them running the same batches of ballots through the counting machine multiple times, 3-4 times.
Okay.
So they're counting these ballots multiple. So what we have is we're seeing lots of illegalities, and they have to prove that this stuff is true. You're talking about destroying the evidence. There's been some people reported who have reported that they've been shredding ballots, Trump ballots, down in Georgia. And what they need to do is they need to look at the ballots and see the ballots that are remaining, are they authentic ballots? Because there's also been reports that some ballots have been counterfeited.
So that being said, that's the foundation. I know that took longer than I wanted to, but I wanted to get because I really want to lay a good foundation so that people know that we're just not talking about politics. What we're trying to do is lay a foundation to get to how this stuff is going to affect the church, how it's going to affect marriage and the family. So that's kind of where we're ultimately going. So to end this question, ultimately, you're saying the bottom line is it's not over.
No, it's not over.
Okay.
It's not over.
So now I want you to, back to the first question I asked 20 minutes ago. Why, what made you decide that, look, I had enough, I'm going to get in my car. What made you decide that you're going to attend this?
So
the rally.
I was thinking that this would be a good thing to go to. Ever since the election, I was thinking we have to do something to support the idea that we need to look at the election more closely. We have to look at the ballots. We need to look at the machines and figure out what the real vote counts were. And I didn't know what it was I was going to do initially. And I was thinking, because there were 2 other rallies that happened in DC that I had not gone to, and then Trump, he said, he basically invited people to come on January 6th. And I thought, Trump's been president for 4 years. He's been taking all this grief from, everybody, the rhinos and Democrats and the media, almost all of it undeserved. He's not been the evil person that people made him out to be. And I thought, he's not asked a single thing of me. He has not asked a single thing of Americans in the last 4 years, but he's asked us to come to this event to try to show our representatives that we care about fair elections.
That's a great point.
And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. And because I knew that Antifa would be there, and Black Lives Matters would be there, because they were there at the other previous 2 events a month earlier or 2 months earlier, whatever it was. I guess they had one in December and one in November, a couple weeks after the election. Families were being attacked by Antifa. They were being, well, I have to say they were being attacked because they were getting punched, they were getting spit on, and it's just being abused. And that was something I didn't want my family to have. So I knew I was going to have to go by myself and with other men.
So that was my next question. Like, why didn't you take your son Joe with you? So you kind of answered that a little bit, but go into that a little bit more.
Yeah. So my son's 11. He'll be 12 soon. And
usually you would have took him. I know how you are. You usually take your son there almost everywhere you go.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would certainly want to take him, but I'm not going to bring him into a position. I'm not going to take him and put him in a position where he might be in danger like that. I mean, I can't control what other people are going to do. I can never control other people. And when I know that there's going to be fanatics like that, I mean, look, Antifa, they spent all last year, most of last year, burning down many cities. They did over $2 billion worth, at least $2 billion of damage last year into the cities. And, many people died, police were killed. It was just not a family friendly environment, any of those rallies or riots. And, I didn't think that there would be a riot in DC. And you know what, even right now, I don't think there was a riot in DC. I mean, I was there. There was I'm going to say there was about 1 million people. There was at least 500,000 people there, maybe 1 million. One person there, I know, a couple people there.
Well, to prove that, so
1 to 2 million people.
Right. So like, because people like, oh, they just, but no, say like, tell me, like, you know how far, you know how they usually count by how far the crowd goes back to a certain point inside the square. Do you know how far up it went back?
Right. So when I was on the Capitol lawn, the Capitol lawn was pretty full. And that can probably hold about 280,000 people. It wasn't packed, but it was pretty full. I would say there was probably 230,000 people there. And then the crowds extended back to the Washington Monument, all the way back to the Washington Monument. And these were people who were not insurrectionists. These were people who were singing, you know, the national anthem and chanting USA, and, you know, every legal vote should be counted. How can anyone be against the idea that every legal vote be counted? You know,
the demonic narcissist.
That's true. That's true.
So did you and Vita have a discussion about if Joe could go or not, or was it just, did y'all even talk about it?
The conversation went something like this. So we're all going to go, right, dear? And I said, no, I don't think it's a good idea. I think there might be some problems there because of Antifa, and, you know, there'll be a lot of people there. We were at the March for Life last year, and that was the one that President Trump spoke at, and it was a huge crowd. And Joe wandered off at one point to go to the bathroom, and it was hard to find him. You know, it was hard to find him. It was a huge crowd.
Yeah.
So
I understand.
Right.
So tell me what you saw from when you the morning when you guys, so what time did you guys go? Were you by yourself, or did you go with some of your friends and stuff?
So I talked to some people at church, and they hooked me up with a group out of Columbus, Indiana, who were going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, okay, cool. So I contacted them, and I asked if there was anyone leaving from, you know, the town I live in, and they say, oh yeah, sure. So we left from here, and instead of Columbus, and the guy I went with, we picked up 2 other people. So there's 4 of us in this car.
Okay.
The three men I'd never met before, all of which, you know, good Christian men. One was a Baptist preacher.
Mm-hmm.
And
I bet y'all had some discussions in that 8-hour drive to DC.
Yeah, no, we had a little bit of a conversation. Yeah, it was interesting. Interesting. I'm glad to see he's using our book, you know, as a Christian.
Really?
Well, he's using a Bible. Right?
Yes.
Isn't the Bible from Catholic
his
origins?
His 43 books short Bible.
He's got most of it.
Yeah. So when you got there, so the next day you got there, and then what time did you guys go to the square? Did you start marching?
So we had a choice when we got there. We had a choice. We could have I think it was like 9 o'clock. They were going to, I can't remember that. I think 9 o'clock was when they were going to open the doors or the gate or whatever to hear Trump speak in that rally. Cause there was a rally at near the White House called the Ellipse. It was at this place called the Ellipse. It was about, it's just west of the White House, and it's about a mile from the Capitol building. And that was going to happen like, oh gosh, I want to say about, I think Trump was originally supposed to speak about 11 o'clock, but other speakers were going to be there too. And that was going to open at 9, but our group was also scheduled to talk to our 2 senators, Braun and Young. And so we
of
went
Indiana.
Of Indiana.
To be clear. Yeah, just to be
Right.
clear. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I spoke with some people in our group, and half of us went to see Braun and Young, and the other half wanted to go hear Trump speak. So we got to sleep in a little bit longer because we didn't have to get up early to line up because the crowd at the Ellipse was huge. That went, from what I understand, extended all the way to the Washington Monument. And so that was another big crowd. They were saying that was about 300,000, 400,000 people there.
So already we're up to 600,000.
Yeah, it was huge.
Mm-hmm.
So we went and spoke to Young and Braun. Young was not very receptive to our urging him of, to fight the certification. He, at one point, one of the guys asked the question, did you even hear any of the testimony of people who went before the state legislatures to say they saw problems? And he didn't want to answer that question. He hemmed and hawed a bit, and when pushed, he finally said, "No, I didn't." He's not seen any reason to decertify the election because he hasn't looked. And that's been true for everybody.
You don't want to know. It's like the Catholic faith. Everybody wants to, people want to go out. They want to be out here outside and just do whatever they want. And they don't really want to know about the real truth. Why? Because if they do, then they have to do something about it.
That's right.
No,
that's right. That's exactly right. Exactly right.
So you guys were going to go see Trump. So you marched up there, and it was all peaceful. Everything, you were having a good time, probably, right?
Oh yeah, it was great. Some of the nicest people there. I mean, you would not believe it. I was stopping and talking to everybody along the way. I was like, where are you from? What brought you here? What do you think should happen if this happens or what that happens? And we were just talking about what we'll do if the Senate and the House decide to actually certify the vote. What's the next step? What would we be okay with, like Trump doing martial law? We were talking about all sorts of things that could possibly happen, and because we're all convinced that this election was not on the up and up. Because if it was, everyone would be okay with a full.
Yeah, recount. They kind of would.
I mean, I think back to 2020. Remember, back in the year 2000, when Bush and Gore were running, and we had all those people looking at hanging chads and everything. They had everybody reviewing and viewing and reviewing. The rooms were crowded with people, and the media was there. They had tons of cameras. Everything was open. Everything was clear. There was no hiding behind closed doors. But that's not the case, in this election. That was not the case at all in this election.
Yeah.
So we wandered up to the Capitol building, and actually I ended up getting separated from the crowd, from the people I went with, and I was pretty much just by myself. And it was really just an amazing gathering of people. The people were really, really good patriotic Americans. I got there before President Trump had finished his speech, and already there were lots of people around the Capitol building. They hadn't yet gone up onto the lawn yet, and there were barricades up on to keep people out. But those were eventually abandoned, and people were allowed on the lawn. People were allowed to go all the way up to the scaffolding for the that they had set up for the inauguration. And that
was unusual in itself, right?
What's that? The barricades?
To allow them to get past that.
I don't know. It's my understanding that there was supposed to be a stage set up, but the stage was never set up, or was set up and taken down. I don't know. I've heard different stories. There were supposed to be speakers there, and there were none. I wonder why that was the case. I mean, I want to know what did Nancy Pelosi know, and what did Mitch McConnell know prior to all this happening? Because, from what I understand, the president offered extra, military, in the form of a National Guard for security, and they denied it. They declined to have any.
So when you were there, and then people started moving closer to the door, to the building, and then what happened?
Well, I didn't see anybody actually breach the building where I was. I stayed probably about 150 yards from the building itself. I stayed within the area of the lawn, the Capitol lawn, which is just west of the Capitol building. And we had we know there was Antifa there. At one point, I got tear gassed by Antifa, because I say Antifa not because I actually saw the person, we wouldn't be tear gassing ourselves, and the nearest police officer was
Yeah.
the nearest police officer was like 200 yards away, because I mean, and these were tiny little, like, small smoke bombs, they're and at first I thought that's what they were. I thought they were little smoke bombs, and then I got a second whiff of them, and it got into my lungs a little. Like, no, that's actual tear gas. And it wasn't the canisters that you normally see the military use or the police use.
Yeah.
So it was like and these little things only burned for about 30 seconds and they stopped. So it's like, so someone walked by, threw these things down, and wandered away.
I think that sounds like they're trying to get the stage set. You know what I'm saying? Trying to get the stage set for what was getting ready to happen.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to rile up the people. The Antifa that were there, the Black Lives Matter people who were there, they're not there because they like Trump supporters or they like Republicans or like conservatives. They're there because they're trying to make us look bad, and they have a willing media that went ahead and told the story that they wanted to tell.
So do you think? So the bottom line is, do you think, like, it was when it all started going down? Do you think it was staged, and could you tell something was going on?
From where I was, everything looked like a peaceful rally to me, except for the police officers who were every now and then throwing. And let me just say, I heard, as we were walking around, we'd see police officers on the corners and stuff. The most common thing I heard said to the police officers were, "Thank you for your service. Thank you for being here. Thank you for keeping us safe." The crowd that was there was not anti-police one bit.
Yeah.
And what we saw was, from the Capitol lawn, we saw the police, they were they were trying to disperse the crowd, I guess, by using flashbangs, which are basically little explosive devices that are really loud and are very bright. And they were also using some tear gas. I heard somebody from somebody that they were using rubber bullets too, but I never saw that. And again, I'm not sure why they were doing that, because we weren't pushing back at them at all. I mean, the people who were pushing back, like I said, I think it was mostly Antifa and Antifa people who were incited by Antifa to act in a way that was not normal for a Trump crowd.
Do you think it was? I don't even say these two organizations' names, because it's anyway, Antifa and Black Lives, whatever.
Yeah.
Do you think they were in, as well as the regular Trump supporters were in, both once they were inside the building? Do you think it was a mix of both, or do you think that was mainly the two crazy organizations?
So I think, look, I know at Black Lives Matter, and this one guy's name is John Sullivan. I think his name is John Sullivan. And he was taking video, and he's clearly Antifa / Black Lives Matter. He's affiliated with them. He's got his own little Marxist anarchist group that he's part of too. And he came out and he said, he said that he was there to infiltrate our group, and to incite us to go into the building. And wow, and he
out of his own mouth,
out of his own mouth. I mean, he even said to I think it was a CNN reporter. He said, and this is recorded. This is in one of his videos that he sold to CNN for $35,000.
That's all,
which is amazing.
That's
cheap. No, actually, that's expensive, because normally they only get a few $100s when you contribute like that. So this has actually upset some people, from what I understand. But he was talking to a CNN reporter. I think she's also a PBS reporter as well. And
that's a lot of credibility.
Well, what's funny about it was that they're inside the Capitol building on video, and he's saying, "We did it," and she's saying, "Yes, we did it." And she said, "Are you still recording?" And she asked him, "Are you still recording?" And he says,
"Of course I am. I'm an idiot."
He says, "Yes, but don't worry, I'll delete it later." But he never did. He forgot. And so it got posted. And so people seen it.
So Okay.
So we know now that that the media was in on it. We also know, at least some of the media was in on it. We also know that Antifa was in on it. Or
So
Black Lives
basically,
Matter.
man, the bottom line, and then we're going to move on to a different mode of questioning. Is the bottom line is, man, this is going to take maybe years for the courts to sort this out. Is that kind of what the feeling is in that work, in that part of in that realm?
It shouldn't take years. It shouldn't take years at all. There's video cameras inside the Capitol building, and we've seen some of the videos where people are walking around looking like normal tourists. I mean, many of the people who got inside that Capitol building who were just normal Trump supporters thought they weren't doing anything wrong because the police were just letting them in. They didn't realize that that they were necessarily doing anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
I mean, they didn't break in through. Some of these people just walked through the front door, and they've got a video of the police standing aside and just kind of ushering people in. And you wonder, why would these people be considered terrorists or insurrectionists when they're just doing what the police are allowing them to do?
She's asked for divorce. Now what? Of course, you just didn't see it coming, but it has. So now what do you do? Well, what you do is, step one, you decide to man up and fight for her no matter what. Step two, decide if one of these categories in the marriage maintenance master plan fits your situation. A, she's asked for divorce. B, she has left the home. C, mutually agreed separation but didn't want it. D, she's in the home but distant or separate bedrooms. E, you're divorced but didn't want it. Now, step three, if you are in one of these critical situations or close to it, then register to watch the Marriage Masterclass immediately at www.savemycatholicmarriage.com. Step 4. After watching the masterclass, get the help you need by scheduling a discovery and strategy session to receive a proven plan of action tailored specifically for your situation. Many husbands will look at this and go back to allowing their marriage to fade into oblivion, accepting failure. But some will look at this and say, wonder if this works. Those are the warriors. Those are the husbands I want to go into battle with. Those are the husbands I want to work with. So allow me to help. Those that do nothing have a 100% chance of failure. Those that decide to battle, fight, and act like true men become worthy of winning their beloved back. Which are you? Visit www.savemycatholicmarriage.com. That's www.savemycatholicmarriage.com. Learn how to once again become her hero. Now we're going to get into another phase of questioning that about basically we're going to talk about the effects. Now we see the kind of like the causes and what's going on, and we kind of laid a foundation on that. But I really want to get into, like, now that this crap has happened, the effects. So what do you think that kids 17 and below would think of this election in the future, or what they think of now? How do you think it's going to affect the kids?
That's a good question. In the end, the old saying goes, the history is written by the victors, the winners. So whoever writes the history books are going to be the people who are going to tell the story of what happened. And if they're inclined to believe that this was something that was done by racist, Trump supporters, then that's what will be written in the history books. It won't be right, but that's what they'll write, and that's what kids will be taught. And kids will accept what they're taught unless they look deeper. So if they want to know the truth may be harder to find, but it's out there. There's I'm not sure. There's thousands of videos, hundreds of thousands of videos, I've imagined, of that day from people like me. I've got a couple of videos. I don't have a lot, but I have a couple of videos. It's just of panning around of the crowd and stuff.
The Zapruder film. Walt has the Zapruder film.
The thing is though, my videos are extremely boring because they're just, random people. There's
but you know what? Those videos back were kind of boring too. They were just moving, like you said, panning around,
But it had a picture of him getting shot.
It had the surrounding of what was going on. It's the surrounding area, right, so that you could see what was going on around it too.
Right.
That's funny. That's good. That's funny.
But there's lots of videos out there, and if people wanted to go and learn about the history of what happened on that day, they'd have to go and try to find some of these videos, and they would see that they were incredibly boring because they're incredibly patriotic, representations of patriotic, people who are just looking to get a fair election, and that was it.
So this is what really upsets me. This question is, why do you think the Vatican and most bishops support this so-called winner in this election? And they support all of it. They do. I mean, it's obvious that they do. They support all of it. I've heard the Vatican come out with stuff, and I don't even watch the stuff. And I've heard some stuff seep through about this last 2 or 3 days. So my question is, why do you think the Vatican and most people, in this case, it is, when I say most, it is basically so close to all that I'll just say most. It's really the definition of most. Why do you think they support all this, man? All this stuff?
Well, I think it'd probably be best explained by looking at one man, and that's Cardinal McCarrick. He was not alone.
Huh.
Cardinal McCarrick was not alone. He was able to exist in a system and be as corrupt as he is because he's part of a system that has been corrupted over the years. Now, that's not to say everybody, but there's a number of people who protected him over the years. There's been a number of people he's been able to elevate over the years. And because of that, look, we know that what was the negative consequences for that man after all the things that he had done?
I don't think it's anything negative. Maybe he got pulled, they hit him, but I guarantee you that dude is going around basically like ain't nothing happened. Like nothing's happened.
Right. So he's not really felt he's no longer a cardinal, but the point is he's not really faced any serious consequences. He's no longer being a cardinal, but you know what? Was he really a cardinal beforehand?
No, but
no. He wasn't doing his job. And
he's probably still getting all the benefits and stuff of because, people still probably call me at Your Excellency, and he's probably, so he's been busted back down to a priest, or has he been?
No, I think he's been defrocked.
Defrocked. Oh wow, good. Well, that's a bad thing.
I think I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure that might be the case, and he should be. I mean, he should absolutely be. But here's the thing, though, he can't exist. And they've known this for years. We know from Cardinal Vigano, that this is something that's been known for years, and yet nothing was ever done. And why is that? So, the corruption in DC is probably it's corruption. Go on.
I'm gonna say the corruption in DC is a manifestation of the corruption in the church. And when I say that, a lot of people hate when I say that, but it's the truth. The Catholic Church is the moral center of the universe. And when it starts to go, and I want to be clear, when I say that, what I mean is this: not the church, not Jesus Christ's doctrine, dogma, and discipline, because ultimately that's what the church is. The church belongs to Christ. And my point being,
you're talking about the men.
Yeah, I'm talking about the men, not the church itself. But a lot of times what happens is, hold on. Would y'all be quiet? What I'm talking about is, yes, we try to intertwine the two, of what Jesus and the church is one entity, the men in the church is another. And when the men started going wrong, was scandal in the church, which looks scandalous outside the church. And the reason you have the problems inside DC and inside our country, and if you look around, man, it's getting worse every day. It's not getting better. It's only going to get worse. And the winner of this election is only going to make it worse. Look at the gas prices already.
Yep. No, you're right.
So that's kind of what I'm going at, man. Go ahead.
I don't disagree with that assessment. I think that sounds about right. I think I was going to say something more along the lines with the reason why the corrupt Vatican is okay with a corrupt DC is because it's not going to be fighting with it. They can actually work together, and it's mutually beneficial, right? Because they have the same agenda. Right.
They have the same one world thing,
Yep.
So that. We're almost, we're getting close to being done. Do you and your family ever talk about all the immorality going on?
Some of it. I mean, my kids are, not. I've got one who just became a teenager, and the other one's not quite a teenager. So, some of this morality. Some. I've always believed that we should protect our kids' innocence. We, as parents, we should let kids be kids. We also need to warn them about certain dangers in the world. But all the nonsense in the world that we have to deal with as adults, they can deal with some of those things later in life. As they get older, we'll answer their questions if they have any about. But for now, we're trying to teach them, how to be good Catholics and what that means and what it means to be, a responsible individual. You need to be responsible for yourself. You need to take ownership of your behavior. You need to be able to have discipline, and you also need to rely on God. We know that in the end, God wins, right? So he's got a plan.
Yeah, but I don't mean we can stand around and allow all this crap to go on either.
Oh, I agree with that. I think one of my favorite analogies is that God has his plans and God can work miracles, but he doesn't do them by himself necessarily.
He uses people all the time.
He uses people, right? So
every time he uses people.
Well, not every time. There's times when someone has cancer one day and then a week later they're completely cured of it, and you wonder how it happened.
Yeah,
they weren't doing anything. But
I'm in the relationship, type stuff. That's what I meant it. But I see what you're saying too.
Yeah. Right. But in the case of a life-saving situation with a doctor, the God works through the doctor to save the person's life. And some people say, well, we should also be saying that we should all be pro-life. It means we shouldn't have capital punishment. Well, I believe that God can work through man too, through a court, judge and a legal system to end a person's life. If they committed a crime that was serious enough, sure, God can, strike that man down with lightning, or he may use people through the court system and through a fair and legal and just system and his life that way. So God uses people.
But the thing about people, like especially Catholics, are starting to have a lot of kids. We're getting away from the, we bought into the Kool-Aid, the societal Kool-Aid of we only go, 1.5 kids or 2 kids or whatever. And we're seeing, now a lot of the young Catholics coming along, or they're looking for the truth. And so, like at Holy Rosary, our church, man, there's kids everywhere, all the masses. And that's a great thing.
Well, I agree. And the thing about that is it's more of the traditional Catholic churches, though, right?
Yes.
Holy Rosary is more of a traditional church, so
we're
seeing more traditional values and an understanding what that means.
And so that's what I said. We're building. So my point was saying that is we're building. Believe it or not, we're getting our army out there. Our kids. We're building. Our kids are learning. They're learning how to critically think. Kids. You don't put them in these schools and let these terrible teachers teach them anything. But I think that what we're doing is we're teaching our kids how to critically think. It's basically how to solve problems and know the morality and give them the foundation to go out there and have kids and create marriages kind of like we are. You know what I'm saying?
Critical thinking, you used a really important word there, or phrase, critical thinking. We're raising kids today not to be critical thinkers. And we're seeing these people.
We're raising them to be socialists and communists, which just go along to get along.
Oh, absolutely. We see them. We see them every single day when we see them mindlessly continuing to wear masks. The mask is a symbol of their inability to think critically.
It is. It's a symbol of communism. And here's the thing. People really don't understand what communism is. That's why when people like me and you are out and we talk to people and you mention communism, most people don't really understand what true communism is. And so what I started to say is look at China, really research China and just look. It's not a big secret. They're not trying to be a big secret. That's where this country's going. And the mask is basically one of the first things to program us to subdue to the socialistic, communistic of what? Which is basically complete and total government control. That's the bottom line of your life, of your home, you and your relationship with your family and your kids, and you're never in the communist society, man, you never feel safe unless you're one of the elites. But in a communistic, socialistic society, the socialists are not as bad because they still go along with the happy clappy, we love everybody stuff. The socialism, Marxism always leads to communism. And in communism, that's what the Jews experienced. What they do is they come, you sleep in the middle of the night, 3 or 4 in the morning, they bust through the door and take your husband away or your daughter away, your kid away, and no reasons why. That is what communism is in a nutshell, man. And people don't really understand that. They think these young kids these days, they think it's a good thing.
Right. One of the things that keeps the government from doing that is the fact that we've got the Second Amendment. And you know what? I think that the Second Amendment is gun rights. And if the government were able to take our guns away, then they will have no problems coming in and taking our kids away and doing anything else they want.
But this so-called new president has already started that already. They started with the free speech thing, like the so-called big tech have taken away the free speech. The people that really understand how this stuff works, they think it's a good thing that you can't say certain words, but it's stupid. That's why it's free speech. Now he's already started executive orders, what I understand, because I don't watch this stuff. Before I understand, he's already started executive orders that are starting to mess with the guns.
Right. Well, here's the thing. They're not going to get very far with them at first. I think there's, like they did at the Capitol building, they had some allies infiltrate us and make us look bad. This is normally called something called a false flag event. They're going to do something similar to that. They're going to have some sort of big gun, mass murder event, and they're going to use that. And they're going to use that as an excuse to take people's guns away,
like the COVID thing, the freedom, like they did with the COVID thing. They used this fake. Now, I'm not saying COVID didn't kill some people or it wasn't whatever, but it's not as bad as it was, as everybody says it is, because if it was, you wouldn't have to tell people to wear a mask. Right. You wouldn't have to tell people to stay in your house and stay separated because they naturally would. Right. Walmart wouldn't really be open because it wouldn't be nobody in there because people would realize that this is like the plague back in the biblical times. They would stay away naturally. But everybody knows that this is fake. Not all the way.
99.97% of people who get this survive.
I know.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Now it's 0.7 now. It was 0.5. Now it's 0.7.
Yeah, the last thing I heard was 99.97.
Come on, man.
It's just crazy. It's crazy. So, I look at it like this. So they had this Capitol building riot that they talk about.
Uh-huh.
And they've been using that as an excuse to ban Trump from Twitter, to ban other conservatives. So they've been clamping down on people's First Amendment rights of free speech because of that false flag event. It's gotten to the point now. Last year when Trump was talking about hydroxychloroquine as a possible treatment for COVID, the media and the big tech companies were
They don't
locking
wanna
down
hear
that. They were deleting videos of doctors
yeah.
saying that it works.
Oh yeah.
They were totally clamping down on free speech. And now we find out a month ago, oh yeah, hydroxychloroquine does work. Someone from, I can't remember who it was. I remember hearing someone from China, and they said it's got to the point. It gets to the point at some point. At some point, you realize if you want to know the truth, you look for the things that they're banning. If they ban discussion of hydroxychloroquine, then you know it's because it probably works. If they're banning discussion about election fraud, it's probably because they cheated. If they're banning talk about, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
they ban the things they fear, and they fear the truth.
Yeah. So ultimately, Walt, how do you think this election will affect the state of the church? How do you think that, the election and all this stuff going on? I mean, because none of this is a coincidence.
Well, I think when you stop and look back at history, places where Catholicism really kind of thrived or survived, and a lot of times it's been in places where there's been large amounts of oppression. When the communist bloc was in place, Catholicism still survived in Russia, and still survived in
China.
Poland.
Look at China.
Yeah, exactly. But if you look at Catholicism in Poland, it continued,
yeah.
and it was there, and it thrived. People, when you don't have, there's something about having a really comfy life.
Yes.
If you're really comfortable in your life, for some reason you stop looking to God. People stop turning to God.
Yeah.
And that I think suffering helps people think about
mortality
God and mortality and yeah, exactly. In China, I think one of the worst things that's happened to the Chinese Catholic population there has been this deal that the Chinese people made with the Pope.
Yeah.
And they're kind of secularizing it, and they're nationalizing the church, changing the Bible.
Well, men like in see, here's the way it's supposed to be. Like this society with all our technology and everything, what that's supposed to do is when you have a society of technology, that technology does what? It saves you time. You gain time from that. You gain more time to do other things that you wouldn't have to do, like the washing machine. Before, back in the older times, you had a washing board. Well, that took forever to even do one piece of clothing. Well, now you got a washing machine that can do 20 or 30 pieces of clothing. Right. The way it's supposed to work is when you start getting technologically advanced and you started getting that time, that is supposed to free you up to do what? Change the state of your life, which is what? To draw more closer to God, for more prayer, for more spirituality, more reflection. But in this country, it's not doing that. And that's why we have what we have. We've kicked God out of the country and all this stuff started happening. And that's what's going on.
Right.
And it's like we don't have the warrior mentality. We just don't. We want to sit around and just not do anything.
Right. Well, yeah. There's an old saying. You're old enough to remember it, I'm sure. Idle hands are the devil's workshop. Right. Yeah. So if you're bored and you're idle, that gives you time to entertain, things that you probably shouldn't be entertaining. Wild ideas that, what would it be like if I was a woman? Yeah.
Or and what would it be like if I just say that global warming, or what would it be like if I just say that we came from gorillas? Maybe that might be true.
Think about it. Think about this. If everybody on this planet was so worried about where their next meal was coming from, that they're all out there hunting for their next, they wouldn't have time for nonsense. They wouldn't have time they wouldn't have time to entertain these ideas that are just, constructs of their own imagination.
And that's why it's so easy for this new form of government and this new one world control us and control people at every cost, it makes it easy for the poor, and I would even say the middle class down, to conform. Because what are we trying to do? We're trying to eat. We're trying to go to work and make a living so that we can just wake up in the morning and have something to eat. People like, Biden and Obama and Pelosi and, the dude, the Microsoft dude, Oprah Winfrey, all those Bill kind Gates, of people. Right. Yeah, Bill Gates, all those kind of people, they don't have to worry about that stuff. Or these people where their parents take care of them, they don't have to worry about that stuff. They can. That's the whole thing. That's why it's easy for them to. This kind of society is what they want because it benefits them even more. But the poor, the middle class, it's different. It's completely different.
You know what's funny? I think if what the left is trying to do is they're trying to create more poor people. They're trying to get more people depending on the government.
Of course.
And the thing that's weird about that is, I believe, and I think you might agree with me on this, is the more poverty there is, the more likely people will be turning to God. And they're going to creating more people who are going to eventually oppose what their thinking is. So it's going to be a self-correcting thing.
A big cycle. Yeah. So the last question is, what about the effects of the stuff we've talked about today, the effects on marriage and the family?
Well, I heard some Democrats talk about people who are Trump supporters. We need to be getting our mindset right, and that they think that we should be go to re-education camps.
Oh yeah,
and have our kids taken away from us. I don't. I'd like to think that's not going to happen. But I'm sure Nazi Germany. Yeah, I'm sure Nazi Germany. No one thought that was going to happen back then either.
Yes, I know, and that's what I say all the time. That the Jews, we are. It's like a mirror. Like when I see how we are today and how the Jews were, I see a complete mirror back in in World War II. And what I mean is, man, the Jews looked up one day and they were getting gassed.
Yep.
It what when they started confining them, they started singling them out as a Jew. Then they started making them stay in their house. Then they started making them stay inside the ghettos. Then they started putting them on the trains. Then they started driving them to the camps. Then they started ushering them into the gas chambers. It's not. All this stuff is a conditioning. It's a slow process. And look at us right now. This COVID thing, I think it happened before the 60s, but I'm thinking it started in the late 40s, 50s, that this conditioning started happening with us. This country, that what is slowly happening. And when Vatican II came, they knew they had to get the church. They knew that. They had to get the church first. Once they got the church, now that they have the church, and they have the church, they really do. The men of the church, they have them. They do. And I'm telling you, if it wasn't for the knowledge of me being able to go out and find out what Christ really thinks, what God really wants done, I'd be just like the rest of them. Mm-hmm. You would be too. Yep. You would be too. The internet is a double-edged sword. Like Father Ribbecker says, the internet's not evil.
It's a tool.
It's a tool. And it has helped me, but it's also helped the other side too.
Mm-hmm. No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So
we have to make sure that we keep our family strong. We teach our kids right. We teach them the faith correctly. Yeah. And we have to hope for and pray for God's will to win out in the end. We know it will. So
and that's what I talked to my wife, and she she's come along because she's a very smart woman. But I started talking a lot of years ago, man, that you can't. That's why I don't listen to Trump. I don't listen to the new president. I don't listen to the Pope. I don't listen to any of them because I can't control what they do anyway. The only thing that I can control is my prayer life and my relationship with God. Everything else, I need God and to help me influence my environment. And what is my environment? It's my job. It's my friends. It's my church. It's my family. That is the only thing as a man that I can control. And I really can't control that. I need the help of Almighty, our Lord Jesus Christ, to help me figure that out. But man, trying to worry about all this one world government, what they are and ain't gonna do, as we see, that stuff is a fun entertainment type of thing, is how I look at it. I look at this stuff, the election, that kind of stuff, it's just entertainment. The Pope and all that stuff he's doing, to me, that's entertainment. Because I know, and I love Michael Voris, and that's his job. He has to uncover this kind of stuff, and I love Michael Voris, but I can't watch Michael Voris every day.
Right.
But my point of what I'm saying to end this podcast, this episode, is, man, we as men, the reason I had me and Walt talk about this today is because I wanted to give everybody a good perspective of, you have to control your environment. You have to work on your, talk to your wife and your kids, your church family, your job, your friends, your parents. That is what you can influence. And that right there alone will get you a higher place in heaven if you really work at it. So, Big Walt, thanks for joining me today, man. That was fun, dude.
Yeah. As always, it's good talking to you with Jerry.
All right, man. And I'm gonna, you keep on being an expert, and I'm gonna have you on again, man, because you be knowing about this stuff, dude. And it gets on my nerves. But you like my wife, you love it. So when somebody loves something, you pull that knowledge from them.
No, we've got a job though to keep our politicians honest. And
That's
at some point, if we're not being represented properly, I think we were at some point, maybe all get together again and have a nice little revolution.
Yeah. All right, man. I will. Oh, Mary said hi. I forgot to tell you that.
Hey, Mary.
Walt said, hey, babe. Mary said she's going to call you.
Okay, great.
So, all right, man. Thanks a lot for helping me today.
No problem, man.
Tell Vita I said, hey.
That's 3, right? Hey. Okay.
Yes, that's right. Hey, that's 3.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Bye.
Right. Have a good one.
I hope you enjoyed that interview, Man on Fire segment with my friend and expert, Walt Janiec. So, in conclusion, as we always do, we end with a quote from Pope Benedict XVI stating, quote, "Society offers you comfort, but you weren't made for comfort. You were made for greatness." So go forth, Christian soldier. The spiritual fight is up on you. Fast, pray, and prepare for battle. Thank you, Christian soldier, for listening in today. Do you have a critical or pressing problem in your marriage right now? Want help? Come on the show and ask me in person. We can do this completely anonymously. You don't have to be on camera or say your name. It's totally up to you. I would just love to have you as a guest on the show. More importantly, you would be helping other men as well. Contact me at radicalquestions@catholicalpha.com. And lastly, please share this podcast with someone that may need help in their marriage or relationship. Help me save a marriage today.